Everyone is blaming Fontainebleau's empty towers on a botched opening or high prices, but the story is not that simple. In just months after opening, this $3.7 billion resort lost top executives and bled $400,000 a day. Yet behind its struggles, there is something even the Strip cannot ignore. Las Vegas tourism itself is collapsing, and Fontainebleau's gamble exposes the city's deeper crisis. So how did the dream unravel this fast? On December 13, 2023, Fontainebleau Las Vegas opened its doors to a city that had been watching for years. The lobby gleamed, and the casino stretched across 173,000 square feet, ready for crowds that never quite materialized. Even on opening night, the resort's sheer scale was impossible to ignore. 3,644 rooms stacked across 67 stories, but entire wings sat quiet. Guests expecting a grand pool experience found construction barriers and empty deck chairs instead. The 6-acre pool complex, promised as a signature feature, was not finished. Some visitors wandered the promenade food hall, only to discover that just 21 of the 36 advertised restaurants were taking orders. Many of the remaining venues stood dark, their lights off, menus taped to locked doors. The gaps were not limited to the pool or the dining options. Retail spaces echoed with footsteps, and the high ceilings, some rising up to 60 feet, only magnified the emptiness. Staff did their best to direct traffic, but there was little traffic to direct. Facilities managers worked overtime, fielding complaints about missing amenities and scrambling to cover unfinished sections. The opening, meant to showcase attainable luxury, instead highlighted what was not ready. For guests, the first impression was a mismatch between promise and reality. A resort that looked complete on paper but felt unfinished at every turn. The sense of something missing lingered, setting the tone for what would follow behind the scenes. Within weeks of opening, Fontainebleau's leadership team began to unravel. The chief financial officer, the chief technology officer, and the chief operating officer all left their roles before the ink had dried on the first quarter's balance sheet. Even the beverage director, responsible for shaping the resort's nightlife and bar strategy, resigned before most guests could sample the signature cocktails. Each departure sent a ripple through the ranks, raising questions about stability at the top. Behind the scenes, the numbers painted a stark picture. Leaked financials circulating among industry analysts showed daily operating losses climbing as high as $400,000 a day. The resort's vast scale meant that every empty room, every dark restaurant, and every quiet slot machine added to the mounting deficit. The pressure to fill thousands of rooms and keep the casino humming only grew as the losses piled up. Staff turnover extended beyond senior leadership. Department heads scrambled to adjust budgets and staffing levels, unsure if their own jobs were safe. Vendors hesitated to sign new contracts, wary of slow payments or sudden changes in direction. With so many key executives gone, decision-making slowed, and the sense of uncertainty seeped into every corner of the operation. By spring, the resort's financial fragility was no longer an industry rumor. It had become a daily reality. The leadership churn and the relentless cash drain left Fontainebleau exposed, just as wider economic headwinds began to batter the entire Las Vegas Strip. Las Vegas, once famous for drawing 40 million visitors a year, faced a sharp downturn in 2025. Official reports from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority showed that visitor numbers fell by nearly 7.5% year over year through November, a drop that erased years of post-pandemic recovery. In June alone, tourism plunged by an estimated 11%, one of the steepest monthly declines on record. Citywide hotel occupancy, which had hovered above 85% in stronger years, slipped to just over 80% on average by the fall. April's occupancy rate landed at 82.9%. But the numbers told a deeper story. Weekdays saw even steeper drops, with some properties struggling to fill half their rooms. Rising ripple effects spread quickly. Fewer arrivals at Harry Reid International Airport meant emptier taxis and shuttle buses. Convention attendance, long a safety net for strip hotels, softened as companies trimmed budgets and postponed major events. The city's largest convention halls, built for crowds of 50,000, often sat half full. Rising prices across the Strip, hotel rates, restaurant tabs, even show tickets pushed out the middle-class travelers who once filled casino floors. International visitors, especially from Canada, dropped by nearly a quarter, partly because of new travel fees and a weaker exchange rate. Analysts pointed to a perfect storm: economic uncertainty, high inflation, and the sense that Las Vegas had simply become too expensive for many. The downturn was not isolated to one property. Even established giants like Wynn and Caesars reported softening bookings and thinner profit margins. For Fontainebleau, opening into this environment meant fighting not just for market share, but for every available guest. Fontainebleau's playbook centered on exclusivity, but the neighborhood was already crowded with giants. Wynn and Encore, just steps away, had spent decades refining luxury service and building deep loyalty among high rollers. Resorts World, newer but already established, offered its own take on upscale hospitality. Fontainebleau entered this saturated cluster, aiming for the same elite clientele, but without the history or reputation to back up its prices. The numbers behind the scenes were daunting. A debt load of $3.7 billion hung over every decision, forcing the resort to chase premium rates even as demand softened. Corporate memos pushed for high-end activations and luxury retail, but the vast casino and retail promenades needed more than a handful of big spenders to feel alive. Without steady foot traffic, high ceilings and sprawling spaces only emphasized how empty the property felt. Industry analysts questioned whether Fontainebleau could ever fill the volume it had built for. Wynn and Encore maintained weekday occupancy above 80%, but Fontainebleau struggled to reach even 60% on its best days. Retailers reported minimal sales, and some luxury shops delayed opening altogether. The resort's strategy left little room to pivot because slashing rates risked alienating the high-end market, while holding firm meant empty rooms and mounting losses. Competitors watched closely as Fontainebleau tried to carve out space in a market already defined by established players. The pressure to fill thousands of rooms and cover daily operating costs set the stage for reputational blows that would soon ripple far beyond its own walls. A single photo of 6 tortilla chips, barely dressed and served in plastic cups, set off a firestorm. The $24 nachos from Fontainebleau's Tavern Sportsbook Bar became a symbol overnight, spreading across social media with lightning speed. Commentators piled on, calling the dish the most expensive disappointment on the Strip. The viral moment fueled a perception that Fontainebleau was out of touch, charging luxury prices for lackluster experiences. Guests and influencers compared the resort's features to its rivals, pointing out the copycat ice rink and movie nights borrowed from the Cosmopolitan. The upside-down 1966 Ford Galaxy, meant as a quirky showpiece, drew shrugs next to Bellagio's fountains or Wynn's Lake of Dreams. Reviewers on TripAdvisor ranked Fontainebleau just 30th out of 252 Las Vegas hotels. The narrative had shifted. Fontainebleau wasn't just empty, it was quickly becoming the punchline of the Strip. Fontainebleau's troubles deepened as regulators stepped in. The Nevada Gaming Control Board launched an investigation into the resort's casino credit practices, questioning whether proper verification was followed. President Maurice Wooden received only a 2-year limited license, leaving the property's gaming future uncertain. Legal battles also mounted, with Wynn Las Vegas filing a lawsuit over alleged employee poaching. Internally, management cut costs by laying off 60 table game dealers in May 2025. In a bid to draw locals, Fontainebleau began offering free parking and rolled out flash sales for rooms and dining. Workers organized for better wages and benefits, and a successful union push followed. Despite these pressures, the resort spent $112.5 million to buy an adjacent lot, betting on future expansion. Major headliners continued to fill the theater, but every move now carried higher stakes. Right now, nearly 1 in 5 Vegas hotel rooms sits empty across the Strip, not just here. As the city gambles on exclusivity and rising prices, its future hangs on who feels welcome. In Las Vegas, empty space says as much about tomorrow as it does about today.